So I grew up in Australia in a very small little suburb in Tasmania, making me a Tasmanian devil, I suppose. And since then moving up to a very sunny, bright area of Australia called the Gold Coast, which is really not for me, which is probably how I've ended up in dark and dreary England, because it's definitely my kind of place over here. Growing up in Tasmania, I'm pretty sure in my wildest dreams I wouldn't have imagined that I would end up smacking bottoms all the way over here in England. It's a pleasant surprise even to me. Well, when I was 19, I came over to England with a friend and her mum and her little brother actually, and we travelled around. I was only supposed to come for a year, and then I just loved it over here. I loved England and Holland. They're my two main countries over here that I'm always in. And I just love the history. I love the weather, believe it or not. Parts of the culture, I suppose. It's just it's a very different world from Australia, and I definitely feel more comfortable in it. Well, I wouldn't say I have a background in the fetish scene as such. The fetish scene and the adult industry is something I've always been very close to. I have a lot of friends that attend, you know, the fetish parties regularly, things like that. It's always something I've been interested in, but I guess I never really knew how to take the leap into it. So luckily for me, I met the wonderful Princess Kaz, and it's all just kind of snowballed from there. She's a wonderful mentor as far as mistresses go, and I'm definitely learning a lot so far. My background in modelling is not overly professional, I must say. When I was about 23, I became interested in alternative modelling and basically grabbed a friend who had an interest in photography, and we just started shooting weird and wonderful ideas that we came up with, and it was just a whole lot of fun basically. Well, I suppose being close to the fetish scene for such a long time, it had always interested me, and well, for a start, the fashion I always found incredibly interesting. But yeah, I suppose I've always had a very dominant personality when it comes to other people, especially men, and I've always been very interested in taking the leap, so I guess it was meeting Kaz that really pushed me over the edge to finally try it out, and I loved it. I don't think that you need an extremely dominant personality trait. Like, I might say that I have a dominant personality, but on the other hand, I'm also a very compassionate person, a very caring, soft person in a lot of ways, so I'm really not sure about that one. I don't know. It just came out of me one day. For me, there's definitely still a lot to learn. I'm very, very new in the domination game right now, but I didn't expect to be such a natural at it, to be honest. So I'm very excited to learn as much as I can and get a lot better, hopefully. My first session was with Princess Kaz, and I'd been asking her about being a mistress, and I kept saying I want to ask you all these questions and this and that, and then she just kind of threw me in the deep end. She said, right, we've got a client booked this afternoon for a double dom session, and I freaked out and certainly looked the part, as I always do, but I was very nervous about actually following through with it, but I just took Kaz's lead a little bit, and I don't know, I just found it quite natural, I suppose. What happened with that one, I believe we tied him up, we put pegs on various very sensitive spots of his body, and we spanked him a little bit with paddles, a lot of talking down, and at the time I just felt so comfortable. I never thought I would feel so comfortable in that position of power, and I really did. I suppose there's a part of me that's always wanted to be in power. Well, now I must say I still certainly don't have that much experience as yet, but well, still thoroughly enjoying it. You do see some weird and wonderful things. Some of it maybe a little bit much for me, the things that people ask for. But in general, generally, I'm still very happy about it. I definitely like to keep on going with this. Definitely. Well, as a goth girl from about the age of 16, 17, I was already rocking a lot of black, a lot of chains, a lot of handcuffs hanging off stuff, a lot of PVC. So the fashion, to be honest, it was just like me dressing up for a normal night out. Yeah, that's definitely not a stretch for me at all. Oh yeah, the wardrobe was already in place. Well, I can't say I've ever found a session funny as such, but some things are certainly a little bit out of my league. Some of the hardcore fetishists out there have come to me with things that I just wouldn't be comfortable doing. Like, I don't want to see any blood, I don't want to leave any permanent damage on anyone, so that kind of thing's a little bit out of my league, I must say. Well, obviously every session is different, everybody wants something different. As a newbie, I like to find out exactly what they would hope to gain from the experience and hopefully deliver it to them. But the general femdom sessions, there's a lot of strap-on action, I must say. They like to be completely and utterly dominated by a female. A lot of tying up. We like to use a lot of pegs, a lot of little toys, things like that. But yeah, as I said, everyone's totally different with what they hope to gain from the experience. So for me, I've been involved in the adult industry for many years in all various aspects of the adult industry. I've done escorting, I've been in porn films, I've done nude modeling, but from what I've learned in my small time in the fetish scene is that a lot of people in the fetish scene are very quick to judge a dom or a mistress on her background. A lot of people say they don't want former escorts, former porn stars, anything like that. You know, coming to their events, coming on their Twitter, things like that. And I just think, I personally do not understand this attitude. I think, okay, sure, there must be some people out there who have turned dom for money, but there's a lot of people who haven't. There's people like me who've had a genuine interest in this scene for years and maybe just not known how to get into it. So I think there's a lot of judgment actually going on in the fetish industry, especially against people and their backgrounds and where they come from, and I think it needs to stop. I couldn't actually say 100% for sure why every person feels the way they do or wants the things that they do. I think, you know, for some people maybe things to do with their upbringing, things that have happened to them in the past. For me, you know, I've got my own fetishes and they have their own stories behind them, so I think for everyone it's totally different. As far as I've learnt so far with whipping, I don't think there's a limit on how hard you hit somebody, certainly not. But from what I gathered even before I found my way into this industry, is that there's certain places that you should not whip somebody, like in the lower back area, etc., around the kidneys, things like that can be dangerous, so you certainly need to have quite a good aim. I imagine it would be quite dangerous. Princess Kaz and I actually stopped at about 4, like we really didn't want to put any more there, and he was insisting he'd done it before, insisting it was fine. So in the end we said, darling, if that's what you want, you're going to have to put it in there yourself, because our intention is certainly not to cause anybody permanent harm. So the craziest session I have been a part of so far, Princess Kaz and I were on tour, and we had a very enthusiastic sub come to see us. He wanted a lot of nipple twisting, this and that, you know. But the thing that really got me, and maybe it's not that out there in the fetish world, but to me, was a little bit much. He wanted us to insert a cotton bud down the hole of his willy. So that to me was uncomfortable enough already. I really wasn't keen for that, and I actually pretended that we didn't have any cotton buds. until Princess Kaz started looking for other implements we could use. So once I realised we were really not getting out of it, we found the cotton buds and I inserted the first one. After that he wanted a second one, a third one, a fourth one. In the end, he wanted a grand total of 7 cotton buds stretching out that tender area, and I'm sorry to say, but that is a little bit, that was an eye-opener for me, let's say. Never seen anything like that before or since. Well, from my my modest experience in the fetish, in the mistressing position, I really don't think you need to be a certain type of person, a certain look, a certain age. I don't think any of that matters when it comes to being a mistress. I just think that you need to be passionate about what you're doing, interested in what you're doing, obviously, because there's somebody out there for everyone, you know. One man might like to be dominated by a tiny blonde princess, and another man might prefer something else. So it's definitely something for everyone. I would say go for it to any aspiring mistresses out there. That's a tough one. I would say Holland is the most open about being kinky. Like, I find that England is very behind closed doors and don't talk about it and stuff like that. But anyone who knows the Dutch knows that the Dutch don't keep quiet about much at all. And the same for the Aussies, actually. So out of the 3, it would be a tough call. I know there's a lot of kink in England, but maybe they're just not so out there about it. There is a huge fetish scene. You know, it might have been brought slightly more overground since 50 Shades of Grey, but I really don't think there's that many people that have just read the book and decided to jump in a corset and go to a fetish club, because I'm sure they'd probably be a bit intimidated, actually. Obviously there's nothing to be intimidated by, as anyone in the scene would know, but yeah, there's definitely a huge scene for that. Well, I couldn't say for sure if fetish clubs have become more popular since the whole 50 Shades of Grey exploded onto the scene, because, to be honest, I don't go out to them that much. I've been dragged along a lot with friends in Australia in the past, and I've had a great time. There's all kinds of things going on, basically. There'll be like stage shows, people getting whipped, or wax play, various things. A lot of people just showing off their immaculate outfits. You know, maybe some of the bigger fetish clubs, they'll have separate play areas where people can go and you know, get wild, explore their wildest fantasies. Oh, a switch. A switch is someone who can go either way, so they can dominate and they can also be submissive. I have some friends that are switches. I thought originally that I might be a switch, but actually I'm not that much into the whole pain side of things unless it's in an extremely sensual and erotic way. So as far as just fetish goes, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna stick with being a dom. You know, from the angle that I've come into the fetish scene and the whole femdom thing, you know, that's the only side of the scene that I saw was females dominating men. But as I've you know, got to know more people, got to have a better knowledge of it, it's definitely both ways. There's a lot of submissive girls out there that just love it, and you know, a lot of switches as well. And yeah, it's definitely not one-sided. Definitely goes both ways. It's definitely probably brought forward the fetish scene into the public eye. But again, I'm not sure if it is an accurate portrayal of the fetish scene, so it might only be bastardizing the name of the fetish scene at all. I've actually never seen 50 Shades of Grey. I've never read it. As I may have mentioned previously, I have a lot of friends that have been very involved in the fetish scene for quite some time, and every single one of them absolutely despises it because they say it's not real BDSM, it's not what fetish is about, and it's basically just spousal abuse is the opinions that I've heard. So I haven't actually gone that far to discover it for myself. But having said that, I have other friends in the scene that do like it, but it's a much smaller percentage.